Hello, everyone. Welcome to Blueprint's Conduit webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Preeti, and I am a product developer here at Blueprint. And today I'm going to show you how easy it is to use Conduit to expose data stored in SQL Server as an API and how easy it is to consume it. As you all know, data plays a very pivotal role in today's world. Data sets are multiplying more than ever, and to cater to this growing need, new database technologies are being introduced into the market almost every day. In large organizations, typically the technology stacks across teams tend to vary. Therefore, when different teams try to share and consume data from each other, it's often not in a standardized format. Consumption of this data also becomes difficult as each application must contain specific code to deal with each type of data set. As developers, we invest a lot of time in transforming and storing these different types of data. Conduit helps in achieving this seamlessly by providing businesses with a secure data transit solution. It simplifies your data storage footprint with an optimized data movement strategy, regardless of platform constraints. Now let's consider a scenario where a finance team has a legacy SQL database with all their financial data stored over years. When external teams like sales and marketing are looking to consume this data, the finance team realizes that it would be best to expose their SQL data as an API, which will make it easier for all the other teams. Now, while traditionally this would involve developers spending days to write code, test, deploy, and even secure the interface, Conduit helps in achieving this seamlessly. What normally would take hours or even days to set up, right now will just take a minute or even lesser than that. Now let's get started and with an AdventureWorks database that we have in SQL Server. And what we'll be doing is creating a connector using Conduit that exposes this AdventureWorks database as an OData endpoint. Let's go ahead and do this. Now, as you can see on the screen, Conduit has different types of connectors. And for this specific scenario, we will be using this Microsoft SQL to OData connector. Now, this connector specifically allows you to expose your SQL Server data in an XML or JSON format by converting it into an OData feed. Let's begin creating the connector by clicking on the Add button of this connector. The next page, as you can see, will request for details of the SQL Server that we are creating this connector for. Now, this would include providing the server name, database name, username, password that is used for SQL Server authentication for this particular database. Now, at this point, a good question to ask would be, what is OData? For those who don't know, OData, also known as Open Data Protocol, is an open protocol that enables the creation and consumption of REST APIs. It actually provides a standard way to describe the data and the data model. The endpoints that are created using OData are HTTP based, and the data is available in an Atom or JSON format. There are actually a lot of advantages of exposing your data through an OData endpoint. First of all, it's very easy to consume. It also provides metadata that describes your data model of the actual API. And there are also a wide variety of options available to query and filter data at the client side. Therefore, it reduces a lot of the network bandwidth that might be unnecessary. So let's go ahead and provide the details for this particular database and then click on Next. Once the details are provided, the next thing to do is enter a name for the connector. Let's just call it Webinar. And then let's click on Create. As you can see, the connector would be instantly created, and you can find the OData URL by simply clicking on the connector. And that's how easy it is to create a connector using Conduit. This is the trial version of Conduit, and in this version, we have enabled basic authentication. However, we have a paid version, and where Conduit provides more sophisticated authentication mechanisms like OAuth and Azure AD authentication for these OData feeds. Now, with the basic authentication, we could use any tool like Postman to view this OData endpoint and see what it contains. So these are some of the details of how to do it. Now let's go ahead and use Postman to get this data. What you will notice is you just have to give a few basic details of username and password for basic authentication, and then clicking on send would get you the data that is associated with the OData feed. This is nothing but the list of all tables that are there in the SQL Server. What you will also notice is that it automatically provides the metadata information just like any other regular OData feed. And you can do this by attaching or giving the metadata URL for that specific OData feed. Also, if you would like to look at a specific table, let's say we're looking at the customer table from the SQL Server database, all that you have to do is just add it to the URL and click on send, and that would return the entire data set that is present in the table. And like I mentioned before, OData also gives you options to filter. And here, what we're trying to do is filtering the customer table where customer ID is equal to 8. And we're also formatting that data into JSON. And that's how it returns the data. So now this feed is ready to be consumed in any of your applications, just like any other REST API. What we have done is put together an ASP.NET web application that consumes this REST API just like this OData feed, just like any other REST API. It's just a few lines of code that you'll have to add to provide the authentication in the headers, and then you're good to go. What we have done here is filtered it to display the set of all customers with ID less than 10. And here's the view that displays it as a table. So that's how easy it is to consume the OData feed that you just created using Conduit. Now, OData is also compatible with a large number of tools, and one such tool that can be used to quickly visualize the OData feed is Power BI. Power BI provides an OData connector out of the box, which takes in the URL and any authorization parameters to build dashboards in just minutes. You can also schedule these dashboards to refresh at specific time intervals. Now, at this point, Conduit's OData to Power BI connector can also be used to build real-time Power BI dashboards that connect to OData sources. And we will cover that in depth in the upcoming webinars. And that's all we have for the Microsoft SQL to OData connector in Conduit.